So we sat down and we watched the 13, 14, 15 cameras saga.
Yeah.
The Slumlord saga. Slaga?
Slaga?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to gross Kaylee out. I've been keeping this from her this whole time. Little prop to make her grossed out.
What?
I'm going to do this review. With
Ew! No! Stop!
For those who know.
Why would you do that? That's so gross. Oh.
So we're here to talk about 15 cameras because this is the new one. But we did watch 13 and 14. Kaylee had not seen them. I had. So Kaylee, how was the 13 cameras franchise for you?
This is like one of the hardest franchises to watch for me. I was extremely uncomfortable throughout every film. I was very grossed out. I was very disgusted.
Yeah.
I was very angry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I had a good time watching.
You were visibly like perturbed and like turned off and grossed out and every negative connotation I can come up with during this. Like I was just looking over and she was just like,
because like
all three films.
Yeah, the entire time. Because like I like to watch horror movies and be horny. I like when movies are scary and hot, but this is not that. If you have a voyeur kink, maybe this would do things for you.
No.
Because you're already into that kind of stuff. But it's just, it was so realistic and I just felt creeped out the whole time. I hated the idea of somebody watching me and like touching my stuff and like the toothbrush thing that he does. All of it is just, it's so invasive and so awful because it's like, I already don't like people. So the idea of somebody like kind of inviting themselves into my life without me knowing about it and like just observing me the whole time.
Yeah.
No.
No. For those who don't know, 13 Cameras is about this landlord who spies on his tenants. He has 13 cameras set up and he voyeuristically watches them. And of course, it gets exponentially worse with his voyeurism throughout. And we find out that he is a bigger creep than we originally even thought.
Oh,
and in part 2, 14 Cameras, he's even worse, and now he's put himself and his world online for everyone to see, and he is actively like selling panties and stuff from the house, like as people are bidding on them, basically. And so we do have characters that come over from each film. His character is in all three. Unfortunately, the actor who plays Gerald is the villain's name. I think his real name is Neville Archibald. I think is that his name. He unfortunately died, and so in the third one they have him recast, which I think was a really dumb decision.
I agree.
Because they're, and I hate to say this about the guy, he's dead now, especially, but even if he was alive, it's like, he is one of those people, right?
His performance is incredible.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, in the first 2 films, I was like, we looked up an interview with him after because we wanted to see if that was how he actually was.
Not at all.
And he's not like that at all. He's definitely, it was entirely a performance and he did a fantastic job, but it was like that sold everything. His acting and that character and the way that he like walks and holds his face and like just the way that they made him under too, because they like kind of did stuff to his like skin and like shaped his head a certain way and stuff. And it's just, he's so creepy. He is like the epitome of like when you're like somebody's being a creep, like they're creepy. Like this is the guy that you think of. Like you think of this like giant, like oversized, sweaty, smelly, like nasty old man.
Yeah.
That's like trying to watch you while you're showering or something.
He is the embodiment of like everything that a person envisions when they think of a guy like this.
Yes.
Right. And this actor plays him too well. Like I always am fascinated with that aspect of like the acting world where if you're relatively unknown and you play a certain character so well that people actually are convinced that's how you are, and it actually ruins your career, and it may even bleed over into your life. Like, I remember seeing interviews with the kid who played Joffrey in the Game of Thrones series, and he would talk about how people would like come up to him in real life and like be mad at him and just be like, they really thought he was that character, because when you're somebody who people don't really know, if like Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio or something takes on this really wild role and they nail it and they play it super well, it's like, oh my God, what a great performance. But when you're somebody who isn't very attractive, isn't classically good looking, and you look a certain way and you play a character too well, because when we looked up that video, there was a bunch of people in the comments that were like, I had to come here to look this guy up because I was too positive he was like this in real life.
We were like, we just want to see. We just want to like get the contrast,
So kudos to him for that. But I do feel like that probably disrupted his life a little bit after the film, because people, I'm sure, I'll toss this question over to you. Like, how would you feel hanging around that actor?
I mean,
after this movie,
he looks like, when we saw the interview, he looked different.
He had a beard and like a hat on.
Yeah, and he's like talking and like, like the character in the film is like slack-jawed, bug-eyed, like barely says anything.
Yeah.
Totally different kind of thing. But like if I'm sitting next to somebody who's like having a full conversation with me and, talking, like, I don't know that I would be, I don't know that, I mean, maybe a part of me would be like, this is him. Like, I'm still scared. But I mean, you're right. Like, when people are kind of lesser known and I was thinking of the actor and director from Be My Cat, like how we were like, that's him. That's not a performance. Like, so it is impressive, I think, when actors can do that. But there is, I do feel bad if they get mistreated, because obviously that's not, I don't want anybody to be mistreated for a character that they're playing. But man, the first two films of this franchise, he definitely is everything for the films. I mean, everyone's performance otherwise is good too, but his is like, it's the whole thing. And I think recasting him in this new third film was a mistake. I know we're probably doing spoiler-free discussion, so for now I won't give away much, but I'll just say he's not in it as much as you would as the other two. So, and I think that's because of the actor.
This is so we are discussing the franchise a little bit, but this is supposed to be a review for the 15 cameras, so we probably should talk about that film. Everyone's checked out who came here just for that, which is, it is what it is. But yeah, as far as this film goes, so this follows, we are going to talk spoilers a little bit about 13 and 14 because it's kind of impossible not to, but this follows the events after 14, even though there is something in here that contradicts 14 pretty heavily to me.
We were really confused by this thing.
I don't understand what is happening here, and I will tell you what that is, because I don't really care. It's not like a spoiler to me. It's just a weird thing. So it is a spoiler for 13 and 14. But in 13 and 14, you have a character called Claire, who's like in the first movie, she's the main girl. She gets abducted, and in 14, she's still being held hostage. And he has taken her kid at the end of 13. And in 14, we have this kid named Junior that he has, and he's like 10. And so, of course, we as the audience, because at the end of 13, he calls Junior the kid in the car that he takes, the baby, calls him Junior.
Yeah.
So then the kid that we are introduced to in part 2, which is like a kid who's like at least 10, he calls him Junior. And Claire finally makes her way and she escapes at the end of 14. And now here in 15, she's being interviewed, the same actress. They do bring back her, as well as Jim Cummings, who comes back, which was cool to see because he's obviously doing bigger things now. So I was happy to see him kind of return. But a lot of these people are connected to one another.
Yeah.
Like in Jim Cummings' movies that he makes, he's made quite a few, like Beta Test and whatever. All these actors and stuff are from his movies too. All the people in this and in the previous one. So he works with them. So it's cool that he came in for this just to do like, you know, a minute in the film. But regardless, Claire in this film, she is shown on TV saying 3 years in captivity, 3. And then she is walking away from her house and they're trying to interview her and she's holding like a 3-year-old kid.
Yeah.
What?
We were very confused because we thought that Junior, the 10-year-old boy, was her child.
So it must be it's beyond heavily implied that that's her child.
Yes, it is.
So I guess you could say, because it's never outright stated, you could say that's just another kid he abducted.
Yeah.
And that he had a 3-year-old somewhere at that house that we never saw.
Yeah, I guess it's possible, right? So, I don't know. That was very confusing for sure. And I don't like that that's in there because it does make it seem like it doesn't line up with the previous films.
Another thing that doesn't line up as well is that at the end of 14, he gets run over by a car, by his own truck. And then he jacks someone. He kills a woman who comes like to say, you know, to help him, and takes her car and then goes to Mexico.
Yep.
And then we find out in this movie, close to the border, his van was set on fire and burned everything up. And it's like, so he drove home, got his van, and then went? Which, okay, I guess. I thought he would take the other car, because that's what we saw, but they stole his truck.
Right.
So I guess it was a different car that he had also. But then he's driving another different van, and he has a van. But that's just it. At the end of 14, he's in a white van in Mexico.
Right.
So he had 2 white vans
I don't know.
that I thought he would. I don't understand any of that.
Yeah, it's confusing for sure.
The continuity makes no sense here.
Yeah.
And I do think, as far as 15 cameras, because that's what you're here for, I mean, we are talking about the whole franchise, but getting to the point, I really, really liked some of the ideas in here, because what this movie is about is these people move in to this house in which the slumlord used to own.
Yeah.
And the wife becomes very obsessed with the documentary, the Slumlord tapes, which is the accounts of what happened. They know that this is the house they bought, and she becomes obsessed with it because they moved into this house. And then he finds his old setup, which somehow the cops never found.
The husband. Yeah.
What did I say?
You just said he finds his.
Oh, her husband.
Make sure, yeah.
Finds his setup in the other. So they buy like a duplex, and they own both of them. And he finds a room inside there, and there's cameras, and around the house, and a display, and he starts to become obsessed with voyeurism himself, keeping it from his wife, and allowing these 2 college girls to move in next door and is spying on them.
Yeah.
So I really liked that idea of like finding it, because this movie plays like drug addiction. He finds a drug, he finds this camera, and at first he's like, no. And when he starts watching, he's watching someone undress, and he like turns it off, like, what am I doing? And he questions himself, but then the temptation gets the best of him and he goes back, right? And then it continues from there. And then her obsession with what happened. And I do find that to be an interesting case study, because women for some reason are very obsessed with like true crime and the like this psychology behind what draws these men to this stuff, and then the men are, you know, more drawn to the acts of what they did.
Well,
right?
It's also like, because with women, I feel like if you know the tactics of killers and whatnot, then you feel
You're better
prepared for if you were to be in a situation like that, which could be a possibility.
Here,
and yeah, I did like the setup as well. I think that there's some interesting things that they were exploring. I think that this film is still, it's equally as creepy as the other ones. For a few different reasons, but I mean, it is, I guess, primarily because it's about voyeurism, and how it seems like it's really easy for it to go from something seemingly small to like very harmful, and like it gets blown out.
Sure.
Like so easily.
It starts innocently.
Because it's like this secret that you're keeping from everybody.
Yeah.
We both weren't super satisfied with the ending,
No.
because there's a lot of questions around it. It just doesn't make sense for things that are already set up in the film, like throughout the film. So we didn't understand the ending decision. There's another part of the ending that I did like, but like the very end, we weren't happy with.
Not at all.
So, yeah, I mean, this is definitely the worst of the three.
Yeah.
You know, the other two, I think, really accomplish. I mean, all of them are creepy, but the other two have, I think, better continuity and a better, like, they just make more sense.
Yeah, more cohesion.
More cohesion, yeah.
Yeah, and if you go into IMDb, for some reason, these films aren't connected on there. Usually you go down and it's like, you know, followed by, and it says 13, 14, 15, like are all together as like a series. This is 100% a series.
Yeah.
And for some reason on IMDb, these are never connected, which is super weird to me. I've never seen that before. But regardless, yeah, shout out to Amber Midthunder from the movie Prey last year. She is one of the girls in part 2. But yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit let down by the third. I think it had a lot of really cool ideas. The movie was written by the asshole husband from the first movie, which I thought was cool because it's like kind of a family project. Like everybody who works on it kind of works on other things within itself. So it's cool that the franchise stays like that. But I don't know. I think recasting Gerald was a dumb decision. Yeah, I feel like in this, you could have done it without ever showing his face and make it seem like it was still him.
I agree.
So I was waiting throughout the film for them to try to explain to me why they bothered recasting instead of just showing him from behind or something. And they never justified that decision to me. Yeah. There was never a reason. They didn't even get anyone remotely close because they'll show Gerald in certain shots when they're doing the documentary, and it's supposed to be the real footage, which I call huge bullshit on. They're not showing the slumlord tapes on Netflix. Okay, that's not happening. You're not going to see actual footage of some voyeur, murderer, pedophile person, abductor, kidnapper. Like, you're not going to see his tapes raw on like Netflix in a documentary. This is not happening. So they call bullshit on that altogether. So what they could have done, which would have made 10,000 times more sense, is they should have had that be a reenactment of what they know existed on the tapes. That I would believe. Yeah. So take that actor and have him play him in those shots, right? And then get an actor that's as close to Gerald's build and show him from behind. So when he does show up, that it's
clear that that's who it is.
That's supposed to be the actual actor from the other film, even though we know he's dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like dead, the real actor dead, which I already mentioned. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I think that this had really cool ideas.
Yeah.
The main guy absolutely made Kaylee uncomfortable many times. So they were successful, and that's what this franchise is going for. The one thing I will say that is very odd to me is for as voyeuristic as this movie is supposed to be, and as voyeuristic as the franchise is supposed to be, while there is voyeurism, it's not very graphic ever. The kills in this are very light, very simple, no real gore or anything. There is one single bit of gore that's pretty cool at the end of this newest one.
Yes.
But outside of that, it's all just kind of like blood or off camera.
Yeah.
And then as far as like, this guy is watching women undress and have sex and all these sorts of things. And there's almost no nudity in the entire franchise.
Yeah.
It's super weird to me.
There is a bit of nudity, but it's very sparing. I think, the last film, obviously, it was like 2 underage girls.
But it's supposed to the point of it is it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. You're watching people do stuff in a private setting.
Yeah.
That's the point of the movie. It's supposed to make you feel like vulnerable. Like, this person is seeing things about me that I don't want to be seen. And it would make us more uncomfortable as the audience if we were seeing more private acts than we see in this film. Their full nude bodies, them doing gross things in the bathroom, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
There's almost none of it. And I feel like that's such a missed opportunity for this franchise that's supposed to make us so uncomfortable and make us feel like we're being watched. Because everything, and plus it doesn't add to the realism to this at all when all of his camera angles are like here. And he's like live streaming them and everyone's like typing like, oh my God, look at her vagina and all this. And I'm like, I can see literally this up.
Yeah.
These camera angles make no sense to a voyeur. He would not set them like that.
I know what you're saying. I think, for me, I was already sufficiently creeped out and felt like vulnerable. So like I didn't need to see anything else because it was already like implied that they could see certain things. But yeah, the camera angles I do think were kind of silly to be like, but I don't know.
As hardcore as the film tries to be, it never really gets there.
Yeah. It's all about the implication.
Yes.
And it worked for me.
For you, yes. 100%. I just want to see some boobs.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I just felt like it would have added to the film, but that's me. So yeah, I'm just a little disappointed in 15 cameras. I don't like how Gerald was used, but I get it. The actor died and he's impossible to replace, but I just think write him out. Because I think this idea of him finding his cameras is enough.
I agree.
And I think they should have just stuck to that.
Yeah. And
then the ending, they should have either set it up to work or went with the ending I had told you that I was going to go to. Yeah. We're going to talk about spoilers really, really quick for 15 cameras. Just want to point this out for anyone who's confused on what I'm talking about. So if you haven't seen the movie, shut it off. But here we go. The ending makes absolutely zero sense to me. We do see in this film that he has to be our main character, voyeur that is created. He is in these girls' houses and he takes a phone call and he's being super quiet.
Yeah.
And then he sneezes and the girl hears him.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow now, even though we see that the room is soundproof, we know the room's not soundproof. And there was no time for the room to be soundproofed. After he meets Gerald and he comes into the house and he goes after the girls and all that stuff, he didn't have time.
Yeah.
He didn't have time to soundproof that room. Why would he even soundproof that room? He was just going to leave him down there? That doesn't make any sense. Because there's so many things that just don't make sense here. If they knew, this is so dumb to me. This is the kind of thing I'm just no way. If the slumlord is known and there's a documentary on him and there's a big deal.
Yeah.
And one of his properties is put back on the market. You don't think that tech people mm-hmm. and the police are going to sweep that house and go through every single light socket,
right,
wall socket, anything.
All of it.
100% they're going to look for
all of it. Yeah.
And if they did so if he shows back up right, at that house, and he's there with what he's got and all this stuff, and his wife is like, he's missing, right? They would find him. Number one, they'd hear him because we already talked about this, but let's say he soundproof it, that's fine. But they would then, because she found a camera in the house,
yes,
they would be like, okay, let's look, and they would find other cameras, and they would find where they led to,
right?
Because they would be like, where do these lead?
Yeah.
And maybe by that time he'd be dead. That's fine. So do that, right? Show that they found the cameras, and then by the time they get there, he's starved to death. Or have it to where the wife takes back what she said and is like, no, I made it up. There are no cameras, whatever, because she finds out her husband's a creep, finds him, and leaves him down there, right? Because that's what we thought was going to happen, that maybe she was going to find him and be like, never mind, like I never found him, right? Or another one that I had suggested was that she was going to find him, and then he was going to blame it all on Gerald,
right? And be a victim.
she was never going to find out that her husband did all that, and he was going to get away with it.
Yeah.
But they went with the fourth option, the dumbest option by far, because it makes literally no sense in any way I think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I agree. I mean, yeah, I'm not satisfied with the ending. I like that she escapes and fights back and everything.
His death is pretty gruesome.
His death was gruesome, so I liked seeing that. But I think everything that was handled with the husband was done poorly, because it just doesn't make sense, So
none at all.
Yeah.
None at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, the third one is a big letdown, but that's that.
That's that.
Let us know if you check it out, and
ew, no.
Tastes like shit.
Oh yeah, it's so gross.
All right. Bye.